Hey folks, Jessie here from Onion Grass Gardens. Today we're going to be taking an extended tour of the food forest. Also, that's going to involve looking at the chores involved, some of the projects going on. So this episode is going to be easily 30 minutes long. So grab your popcorn and your fuzzy blanket. Let's get to it. If you've been following along with the channel, you might recall that all of these trees right here, these 5 in a semicircle around our campfire, these were planted this year. So they were ordered through the mail and came just as sticks. And you can see they're doing considerably better than just sticks. In fact, you can see this year's growth on them. So all of this is this year's growth. All of this is this year's growth. So you can see this is this tree by itself has gained a couple feet here. This is a jujube. I've also got a persimmon that's looking very happy. Its leaves are all shiny and everything. It's had a little damage here or there, but is otherwise doing all right. Got a little witch hazel. This one has had no problems whatsoever so far. Knock on wood. And I would just like to say about persimmons, I love how the leaves come in this sort of bronze orange color, and then they turn to green as they get older. That's just lovely. This is a Nikita's Gifts persimmon, and just like with the last tree, with the jujube at the beginning of this, look at this. From here to here, that is all new growth. Also here to all the way up here, new growth. So this little tree is doing great. This one was looking pretty good and was very full, and then a deer came and browsed it. You can see where it was chomped in several places. It actually had as much growth as that one. And this is another jujube, but it does have some leaves left, and it's still doing its thing, so I think it's going to recover just fine. All right. So progress. There's a lot of good stuff happening in here. I've put a lot of annuals in between the perennials. So I have things like some nice little delicata squash in here. Cosmos are just opening, which is lovely. I've got these lovely little yellow cosmos. These are I think about the 3rd generation of cosmos on my property. So these are from seeds I saved. They actually originally came from an orange cosmo that clearly mixed with something else. And I saved a whole bunch of the yellow ones because it was just such a nice color. Here we have our tiny Tim tomato, which already needs more strapping up here because it's just growing so fast. But you can see we've got lovely little tiny Tim tomatoes here. These have been really prolific. This is the 3rd year I've tried these, and they just do well every time. So no complaints. This mulberry almost died this year. You can see it died back at this point. Both the mulberries got hit pretty hard this year. Hey, McFluff. They got hit with frost right as they were leafing out. And then this one additionally got munched on by deer. But despite all of that, it is putting out these lovely little leaves and doing its best to recover. So this area was recently cleaned out, and I replanted some stuff, some beans and whatnot. And I'm happy to say, dang, listen to those bugs. I'm getting considerably less Japanese beetle damage this year. There is still some, you can see. In the previous years, these trees got completely wrecked by Japanese beetles. You can see this is one area I haven't cleaned out yet. I need to pull the weeds. There are real things growing in here like eggplant and okra, but I haven't done weeding, so I need to get to this spot. But what I was saying with Japanese beetles, this one always gets hit the hardest. It seems to have a really hard time with them. There's a pair of them right there. In the years past, these are cherries, have been hit a lot harder with Japanese beetles, but I learned that parasitic wasps will lay their larvae underground on the larva of the Japanese beetle. And so last year we kept all our wasps' nests on the property, and I have made a point to cultivate more things that wasps like mint and oregano and those types of things, and have found we have a lesser population of Japanese beetles this year because we are cultivating wasps. Got a little cucumber here. All right, so one of the problems I'm going to point out has to do with this species right here, the cat. I always label my stuff when I put it in the ground, and the cats have been chewing on the popsicle sticks and pulling them out of the ground. I don't know if McFluff here is to blame. He's probably not the culprit, honestly. This boy's a sweetie. But some of my fruits and vegetables are now unlabeled because of cats. I also want you to see the successes and failures. No matter how good a gardener is, there is not one gardener on this planet who goes through the year without some kind of failure. Either a critter eats their crop, or there's a disease, or there's a late frost or an early frost. There are just things that happen because there's a lot of factors in nature that can do things to wreck your food that you're trying to grow. So I want to take you along with some of those successes and failures and see how we can still persevere through those, right? You can do this. Everybody fails. In the garden, failure isn't just an option, it's inevitable. It will happen. There are just too many factors in nature that can kill your plants. And we're just going to try to work towards making sure that as much lives as possible. But there you have it. Like, you're not going to get 100% success all the time. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you where things have failed and where things have succeeded. Joining me today in these videos is my assistant McFluff, who insists on getting in all the shots. The asparagus over here is putting up new shoots. There's another one over here. And the only thing we really need out of the asparagus this year is growth and establishment. And it's doing that. So we can count this as a success. Just having this new growth. The first chocolate sunflower has opened. My center row here with the plums probably has the most problems and some of the greatest successes so far this season. This first plum tree here, the Stanley prune plum, this has been doing pretty all right. It's taken a little damage from Japanese beetles, but is otherwise doing fine. But the Santa Rosa plum, this one is looking very sorry. The leaves are curling, and they're a pale color. I don't really know what's going on. It's been fine the 2 previous years, and all of a sudden it's just started acting like it's dying. So this tree is probably going to have to be pulled. And earlier this year I had another tree snap right in here, and it just snapped off because of high winds. And then the last 2 small apple trees at the end here both have a pretty bad case of cedar apple rust. So in the end, I think what's going to happen is all the trees but one in this row are going to come out, and only the Stanley prune in the back is going to stay. And I'm just going to have to figure out what I want to do at that point, because this kind of gives me an opportunity here. If you've been watching since the beginning, you'll know that I originally planted an orchard. This was before I knew anything about permaculture or food forests. So I planted in rows, right? But if this row right here comes out, except for the Stanley prune, I can kind of change the layout here. Like, I could end up putting some kind of feature in the middle where people could sit, maybe like a gazebo or a workbench or something for me in the garden, and then I could kind of more organically create sort of some islands around here instead of having the straight lines. So the death of the trees might actually be a good opportunity to kind of reorganize around here. But on the topic of successes now, since we've got some failures, and this is just how it is. Tennessee is a harsh place to grow. It seems like it'd be really lush and easy. Well, it is lush, but it's not easy. Got some nice little watermelons that are looking happy. And this is my first time growing cowpeas, and I'm growing a few different varieties. This variety here is different from this one here, if we can find the tag. I don't know, maybe the cat stole that one too. But I tried growing 5 different varieties, and 4 of them came up. Over here, I just got 1 in this batch. A single one came up from the seeds. But all the other varieties are doing well. I think the varieties were Pigot, Whippoorwill, Phenomenal, and I think the California cowpea were the 4 different varieties, and these are just doing fantastic. They're happy, they're lush, and I'll be interested to see how the cowpeas are. So it's a mixed bag of successes and failures as it goes. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about my apple trees suffering from cedar apple rust. This was just planted last year, and I was told it was a variety that was resistant to it, and clearly it was not. One of the things you have to know about Tennessee is that apples do not do particularly well here. They are prone to every rust, blight, mildew, mold, and insect that Tennessee has to offer. Sometimes in gardening, you don't always know why something fails or something succeeds, and this plant is a really great example. This is a beautiful, thickly growing tomato plant with set fruit on it. This is a Principe Borghese tomato. So this one is doing great. We walk ourselves over here. A few feet away, this is also a Principe Borghese tomato, just a little ways away from the other one. It's stunted. It is setting fruit, but it's small. It's a little more yellowish in the green. It's not as nice a dark green as the other plant. It's in almost exactly the same conditions with different results. I have no explanation for this, and perhaps as a gardener you've experienced the same thing. Sometimes you plant 2 things in identical conditions and one succeeds and one doesn't. You know, you can lay all these great plans of what you're going to have in your food forest. You can say to yourself, I'm going to have 5 apple trees and 3 pears and 5 plums. But in the end, Mother Nature has a little bit of say about what you're going to have and what you're not. I'm growing a few things I've never grown before, and one of those is these little Chinese forget-me-nots. Finding true blue in flowers is pretty rare, and whenever I can find it, I like to include it. My mom got me that seed pack, and they're coming up nicely, so I'm definitely going to be planting more of these in the food forest as time goes on. I'd also like to take a minute to show you a few of the things that we're harvesting outside of the food forest. Even though the food forest is my main focus this year, we still have a lot of things growing outside of the food forest, and they are part of what we eat, and they are part of our plan for providing for ourselves. So this season I planted a whole bunch of potatoes in a raised bed that I didn't really have any plans for, and I decided just to put some potatoes in there just to make sure we got some use out of it, and pretty much ignored the bed until the end of June when the potatoes came ripe. So we're going to take a look at that harvest and see how it did. All right, moment of truth. Let's see what we got in here. Not bad, not bad. Got some little ones. I'm just going to leave those in there though. It'll be potatoes for next year. Check out the size of that one. Best one yet. Look at that color. There it is, purple mashed potatoes. So this mess right here is actually a raised bed. You can catch a little bit of the corner over here and see that there's actually a wood structure here. I didn't do anything with it, and it got taken over by grass and native morning glory. There's also a volunteer tomato in here, but I'm probably going to take that out as well because I'm going to prepare this bed for a fall or winter crop. This is what happens when you neglect your spaces. I mean, I totally on purpose used morning glories, totally on purpose as a cover crop for my bed. On purpose. I'm taking the leftover morning glories here and chucking them on top of the potato bed that I cleared the potatoes out the other day. So this is going to be just more organic matter on top of the potatoes I left behind. I have some really small potatoes that really weren't worth eating, so I left them all in the ground here, and I'm trying to build the soil back up because it did compress down quite a bit in the bed. Probably, you can see over here, the soil actually started out up here and compressed all the way down to there, from there to there. So I need to build the soil back up, and we're going to do that with a little bit of organic matter. And I'm not worried about these morning glories taking root or anything because today is supposed to be 90 degrees. And if you've ever experienced 90 degrees in the south, you know that these poor things don't stand a chance. They are going to be crispy by the end of the day. All right, so we're putting our rubber gloves on for these. Now, these have a real and actual name. I don't know what they're actually called, I forgot. I refer to these as evil tomatoes. Yeah, so I know those of you who are natives here to Tennessee will correct me on that. They're not evil or tomatoes. They are a nightshade of some sort, but Take a look at the spikes on these suckers. Yeah, you do not want to pull these barehanded. Evil tomatoes. And speaking of tomatoes, my husband and I did some staking. And this right here is exactly why we are staking and tying our tomatoes. We get pretty high winds around here, and this sucker fell over. We're gonna make sure we keep our tomatoes off the ground. You'll notice I've gone around each of these a couple times. I've found that having this a little thicker not only doesn't constrict the tomato as badly, it supports it better with multiple strands. And I've found you're less likely to have the branch break off over one of these bits of twine if it's got a little more support like that. Here's a close-up of what I'm talking about as far as doing a kind of a triple band around the tomato plant. You can see here I've left room for the tomato plant to grow because this stalk will get thicker. And if you don't leave room for it to do that, it will start to get cut off and pinched by these. And I do the 3 bands across because it just gives better support to this, and it's less likely to break off with just that single strand cutting into it. This gives it a lot better support. Look at this tower of tomatoes. Like different stories of a building. I've also been seeing a lot of really good evidence of predators around here. And by predators, I mean insect predators like dragonflies and spiders and things to help keep the insect population down off of the things that I'm trying to grow. And that makes me really happy to see, and I count that as success. Unlike most modern farming and gardening practices, with a food forest, I'm trying to create an ecosystem. I have no intention of spraying my plants with anything. I have no intention of killing the insects in this garden. My real intentions are to attract them. And in doing so, let the insects balance each other out, the predators and the non-predators. So we don't often think of insects in terms of things that are predators or not, but spiders, ladybugs, hoverflies, praying mantises, dragonflies, these are all predators of the insect world. And if I am able to attract those to this place, they will help keep in balance the insects that would otherwise destroy my crops. And we do that in several ways. One is by creating a polyculture, and a polyculture is where we plant a lot of different things together. Instead of having a monocrop of cabbages all in one spot, we disperse the cabbages into different areas, and we plant them next to peppers and apple trees and other things. And not only does that help if one of them gets destroyed by an insect, the others aren't, but it also helps to keep a balance within the insects. So in the case of all the cosmos you've probably seen around this area, the cosmos help to attract predatory insects, as does the cilantro, as does the oregano. So a lot of these different flowers are so key to this system. And that is what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to create an ecosystem and not just a patch of growing food. When people talk about native bees and pollinators, this is what they're talking about right here. These little guys are smaller than a common housefly, but they are native here to Tennessee. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about attracting the pollinators. These are currently on a carrot flower. This here is one of my tractor tires full of mint. And if you're wondering why I'm growing mint out of a tractor tire, if you've never grown mint, the thing you need to know about it is that it has aspirations of world domination. It spreads like nuts and very quickly. And if you want to come be a successful farmer in Tennessee, like holy cow, plant mint. It will take over your entire yard. But this in particular is spearmint. It smells and tastes exactly like spearmint gum. That's where they get the flavor from. So this is the mint that I have to harvest. I have harvested this multiple times. You can't even tell because it just keeps growing back fuller and fuller every time I cut it. I'm dehydrating some more mint. Both my mother and brother-in-law really love mint tea a lot more than I do. So I cut it regularly and harvest it for them and dry it and give that to them, because with the amount of mint I have, I can be really generous. Now, when I say I'm being generous, please don't misunderstand. I'm not over here being all like, look at me, I'm so generous and humble. No, let me tell you what gardeners mean by generous. What we mean is, I have so much of this stinking crop that I'm gonna go pawn it off on my family and friends. That's what we mean by generous. We've got kind of a little pepper section in here. These are Tabasco peppers that we're waiting to ripen up, but we also have jalapenos. And we have plenty of these that need harvesting, so that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna make something out of them. Today I am making a jalapeno mint jelly, and I have no idea how this recipe is going to be. Right now I'm just waiting for those to finish boiling so I can start this up. Honestly, this almost looks like a cold remedy. This recipe has in it cider vinegar, lemon, mint, and jalapenos. So I don't know what this is good for. I don't know how it's gonna taste, but you know what? We're gonna try it because I have a lot of mint and jalapenos, and if this is a good recipe, then this is something that I can do to harvest these things. And that's part of the whole point of these food forests and gardens, right? We grow this food so we can harvest it and preserve it and have it later on. I'll let you know how this goes. As a side note, when you're cooking things that are full of vinegar and jalapenos, like don't put your face over that pot and breathe in the steam. Yeah, because you'll get jalapeno all up in your nostrils and it burns. Ask me how I know. I'm gonna snitch a little just to get an idea about the flavor. There goes nothing. That's an interesting and complex flavor. God, it almost reminds me of like a white wine. It's not super hot with the jalapenos. It has a little zing to it, but mostly I taste the mint and apple. Huh, that's interesting. So this jalapeno mint jelly did turn out really nice. You can see if I hold it up to the light, it's got a good color. It gelled well. The flavor, I would say, is probably good for cream cheese and crackers, or maybe some white meats it might be good on top of. It was on page 72 of this Preserving Made Easy, and what I really like about this book is this part right here, small batches. That is so great because a lot of canning recipes call for things like 20 pounds of tomatoes. And if you don't happen to have 20 pounds of something, you need to be able to preserve things in a small batch, like this jalapeno mint jelly. So I haven't done enough recipes out of this book to do a review yet, but I would like to do a review in the future. Their winter conserve in this was also a really great recipe. It's my son's all-time favorite jam or jelly like thing. A conserve is just a jam that has nuts and dried fruit in it. So I've made a few recipes out of here, but I want to make a few more before I do a book review on it. But if you're interested in that, please tell me in the comments below. I will also put a link in the description so you can pick up your own copy if that's something you're interested in. I have several sprouting projects going on right now. I'm sprouting tomatoes and chives and apples from seed, and part of that is just to keep things affordable in our household. And you'll see we also use a lot of recycled things here, items that aren't commonly used to grow things in, we grow things in, and that's because it's cheaper. This is one of my sprouting projects here. This is an apple that I'm growing from seed from a Pink Lady apple from the grocery store. Pink Ladies are supposed to do well around here. So I've got a couple of these. You can see I've labeled this one 10 Ladies. And that's because I opened up an apple for its seeds and there were 10 of them sprouting inside the apple. They were already sprouting. So I took them and put them in pots. This one was from a different apple though. And we're going to see if these do well here. Some of them are and some of them aren't. You can see some of them are getting like some brown at the edges of the leaves. And those will probably not be our trees that we go with. But some of them, like the first ones I showed you, are doing quite well. And so who knows? They might replace some of the apples in the food forest. And over here I have kind of a second crop of tomatoes. I've got a whole bunch of determinate tomatoes here that, if you're not familiar with determinate tomatoes, they tend to come all ripe at the same time, and these are ready to go in the ground already. These popped up so fast. So I need to be planting these here shortly so that we can get another crop of tomatoes at the end of fall. I collected a whole bunch of seeds from our chive plant, and I've got, you can see, several little planters here full. I know you're like, Jess, those aren't planters. These are like yogurt buckets. Yeah, they are. Yogurt and sour cream. All we do is save these. We put holes in the bottom. And look, it's a pot. They're reusable. It's fantastic. So anyway, if we have a dozen bunches of chives all over this yard, like, I'm going to love that. Because you're never going to hear the words come out of my mouth, I have too many chives. Like, is that even a thing? I don't think that's a thing. So anyway, we're sprouting chives from seed, from our own seeds that we gathered. And I'll be planting those in the food forest as well. So thank you for coming along with me today to look at the food forests and other little garden projects going around the property here. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, and share this to help support the channel. And I really appreciate you watching all the way to the end. That's awesome, because you know what? I have awesome subscribers. So thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next time.